what exactly is India? I mean, is it just a country? Is it a union? Have you ever stopped to wonder why Parliament has the sheer power to create entirely new states or just erase existing boundaries with the stroke of a pen? Well, the answers to these massive questions actually lie right at the very beginning, in the first 4 articles of the Constitution. So let's dive into this explainer and decode the very foundation of the Indian state. If you can master Articles 1 through 4, you are quite literally mastering the absolute bedrock of Indian polity. We're going to kick things off with a massive philosophical hook today. Why exactly is India called a union and not a federation? You see, understanding the answer to this single question really unlocks the entire logic of the Indian Constitution. It completely dictates the power dynamic and the relationship between New Delhi and every single state in the country. To make this explainer as highly efficient as possible for your exams, here is our blueprint for today. We'll cover 1. A union of states. 2. Defining the territory. 3. Admitting new states. 4. Reorganizing states. 5. The parliamentary procedure. And finally, 6. The Article 4 exception. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, a union of states, the philosophical foundation. Article 1, Clause 1 boldly declares India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. Now, notice what word is totally missing there: federation. It's nowhere to be found. The drafters, specifically Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, knew India needed a federal structure because of its massive size and incredible socio-cultural diversity, but they intentionally avoided the word federation. Dr. Ambedkar explained that using the term union indicates 2 very specific things. First, the Indian Union is absolutely not the result of an agreement among independent states. And second, the states have zero right to secede from the union. And this brings up a brilliant contrast between the Indian and American systems. Think about the American model. It's an indestructible federation of indestructible states. The U.S. federal government cannot just erase a state's borders without its consent. But the Indian model? It is an indestructible union of destructible states. The union government actually has the power to destroy the internal boundaries of the states, but the states can never destroy the union. It's like a giant puzzle. The pieces inside can change shape, but the puzzle itself, totally permanent. So if the states are destructible and their borders can shift around, how do we actually legally define the physical footprint of the country? Let's look at Section 2, defining the territory. What exactly makes up India? Okay, here is a crucial distinction that trips up a lot of people in exams. The Union of India is not the same thing as the territory of India. The Union only includes the states. Those are the entities that actively share federal power with the center. But the territory of India? That is a much broader legal concept. It represents the entire geographical area over which the sovereignty of the country is exercised. As outlined in Article 1, Clause 3, this territory encompasses 3 distinct categories. First, obviously, the territories of the states. Second, the union territories mentioned in the first schedule. And third, and I think this is incredibly forward-thinking, such other territories as may be acquired. The framers knew India might grow, right? So they literally built a legal doorway for future expansion right into the very first article. Which builds perfectly into our next phase, Section 3, admitting new states, bringing in the outside. Under Article 2, Parliament is given this immense power to admit new states into the Union, or establish entirely new states on terms and conditions it deems fit. Now keep in mind, this specifically deals with territories that were not part of India previously. A perfect historical example of this is the addition of French settlements like Pondicherry or the historic admission of Sikkim into the Union back in 1975, which actually required a special insertion of Article 2A at the time. So basically, Article 2 is your legal mechanism for welcoming the outside in. Now, let's shift our focus from the outside to the inside. Section 4, reorganizing existing states, redrawing the internal map. The absolute game changer here is that under Article 3, Parliament can completely redraw the political map of India according to its will. Remember, at the time of independence, India was made up of 571 disjointed princely states. Amalgamating and reorganizing all of that was a monumental task. So Parliament has the power to separate territory from a state, unite 2 or more states, or alter areas, boundaries, or even names. Think about the creation of the Telangana in 2014, or how Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh were formed in the year 2000. All of this internal remapping is powered directly by Article 3. But obviously, the Constitution doesn't just let Parliament snap its fingers to change state borders. There's a process. Let's look at the mechanics in Section 5, the parliamentary procedure, how map changes happen.
I highly recommend memorizing this specific sequence because it outlines the exact legislative flow. Step 1. A bill calling for the formation or alteration of a state can only be introduced in Parliament with the prior recommendation of the President. Step 2. If the bill affects the area, boundary, or name of a state, the President has to refer it to the concerned state legislature so they can express their views within a set time limit. Step 3. The bill goes to Parliament. And Step 4. It gets passed by a simple majority.
But here is the absolute kicker. Pay close attention to this detail. Yes, the state's legislature gets to express its opinion on its own reorganization. But guess what? That opinion is absolutely not binding on Parliament. Parliament can take it into consideration, or they can entirely ignore it and proceed with altering the borders anyway. Ultimately, the supreme power rests securely with the Union.
And finally, we reach our last section, Section 6, the Article 4 exception, the constitutional safeguard.
Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, if you are changing the actual map of the country and altering the first schedule of the Constitution, doesn't that require a massive constitutional amendment? Well, Article 4 explicitly declares that any laws creating or altering states under Articles 2 and 3 are not considered constitutional amendments under the rigorous process of Article 368. What this practically means is that Parliament can execute these massive territorial shifts seamlessly using just a standard, simple majority in the ordinary course of legislation. They completely bypass the complex special majority process that Article 368 demands. Why? Because the framers intentionally designed it this way, to avoid legislative gridlock. They knew the internal map of India was going to need constant, fluid adjustment in the early decades of the Republic, so they made sure the legal pathway was totally clear of heavy constitutional hurdles. Okay, let's bring it all together. To lock this in your memory for both prelims and mains, take a mental snapshot of this quick revision table. We're mapping each article to its core one-word concept. Article 1 is identity. It's the union of states. Article 2 is admission, bringing in new states from the outside. Article 3 is reorganization, altering existing states on the inside, and Article 4 is supplementary, making it clear that these changes are not formal constitutional amendments. I want to leave you with a slightly provocative question today. If Parliament can effortlessly erase state borders today with just a simple majority, what prevents the absolute centralization of the entire nation tomorrow? The Indian Constitution is just an incredible balancing act. It gives the Union supreme power to maintain national unity, ensuring the country can literally never be fractured. But at the exact same time, it maintains a federal structure where states govern themselves. It's a delicate, ongoing dance of power. By mastering Articles 1 through 4, you haven't just learned legal statutes, you've truly mastered the philosophical and physical foundation of the Indian Union. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.